Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone. We are happy to have our very own Padma Bhushan Dr. Jagdish Seth in today's webinar on the topic Redesigning the MBA program for the future. Let me quickly share the flow of today's webinar. After I finish, I would request President AIMS, Dr. Sujata Mangaraj, to give her presidential address. Then I would request Dr. Uday Salunkhe, Group Director, Welingkar Institute of Management, to set the context and introduce Padma Bhushan, Dr. Jagdish Seth. Dr. Jagdish Seth will talk for 25 to 30 minutes, post which Dr. Uday Salunkhe shall moderate the session with various questions. Finally, I shall close with formal word of thanks. I would request all participants to pose your questions in the chat box on your screen, on your mobile, on your iPad, whatever, and request everyone to keep your videos off and mute your mics. May I request President AIMS, Dr. Sujata Mangaraj, to please have her address.
Thank you, Dr. Anil. Our honorable guest, Padma Bhushan Dr. Jagdish Seth, esteemed Professor Dr. Uday Salunkhe, respected Professor Anil Rao, revered past presidents and executive board members of AIMS, respected members of Academy of Marketing AIM and members of WeSchool, dear participants, a very good evening to all of you. It is indeed a great pleasure for AIMS to host a webinar where an illustrious management personality like Dr. Jagdish Seth, who being an Indian, has achieved an acclaimed position in the international management scenario. Sir, you are the teacher of teachers and the guru of the gurus. We deem it a great privilege to have you with us, sir, and listen to your valuable wisdom, especially in the present context. You all will be happy to know that Association of Indian Management Schools, a 32 years old academic association comprising of a network of 850 business schools, including top ranking institutions like IIMs, ISB, FMS, XLRI, etc., and departments of universities are as its members. AIMS has a pragmatic vision to uphold the interest of business education in the country and contributing towards quality improvement on a continuous basis through its determined collective effort. Its mission is to focus on quality by encouraging management research, facilitating in designing market-driven curriculum, help maintain and improve standards of teaching and learning, and enabling accreditation and quality assurance of its member institutions. One of the major activities of AIMS is policy advocacy role to sustain and enhance the quality of management education in the country. As we all are aware that management education itself has undergone a tremendous change in the past few decades, but has never experienced such an unforeseen disaster like COVID-19, and more so when we have to live with COVID-19. At the same time, technology has been changing at a very rapid pace and has created a bigger space for readjustment and reorientation. Therefore, from a broader perspective, the situation is challenging, no doubt, but the opportunities are also equally enormous. This provides us a platform with a new realities that will help us to reconstruct and rebuild our national economy and make it a global presence. Coming to management education, what is necessary for management fraternity today is to embrace the technological changes and digital revolutions and integrate the same into management education, both at macro and micro level of implementation, irrespective of the level and its positioning. Accordingly, a paradigm shift is necessary in policy decisions at a regulatory, executive, and implementation levels. Based on the above, the institutions offering management education have to realign themselves and revisit their vision and mission that will suit to the changing environment and business ecosystem. Now, the time has come to look every entity as a self-reliant unit of existence, having modalities to survive and excel without being affected by the turmoil and turbulence existing outside. In light of this, the programs offered in management institutes should undergo a drastic change with an objective to bring out managerial manpower having tremendous resilience, agility, adaptability, patience, and perseverance, who can convert every challenge into opportunity. Here, I would like to recall the call of our Honorable Prime Minister Modi ji, fits into every fabric of the new world facing unprecedented change and adversities. As he aptly said, in the process of being self-reliant, we have to adopt the local product, make it so vocal that one day it becomes global. This message is of high relevance and great significance, especially in the field of redesigning management program for the future. There is a tremendous challenge for all of us, especially the management fraternity, and we must rise to the occasion in order to make his dreams come true. It is heartening that all the dignitaries and luminaries in management education are participating in this webinar, and I am sure this will bring out a brighter and new horizon for all of us. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
I request Dr.
I now request Dr. Uday Salunkhe, sir, please take over the session.
Friends, good evening. Padma Bhushan Dr. Jagdish N sir, who's always been our mentor, our guru, all the time for more than, in fact, I'll say 2 decades. Yeah, and he spared his valuable time. So it's nice to have you all, in fact, are looking forward to listening to Dr. Jagdish N sir. President AIMS, Professor Dr. Sujata Mangaraj, my colleague, Dr. Anil Rao, past presidents, board members, fellow directors and deans, faculty colleagues and students. In fact, Dr. Sujata Mangaraj has already covered quite a bit, so I'm not going to really get into the further context setting. And only I'm going to touch base on a few important points. Because for the knowledge of Dr. Sheth sir, yesterday, in fact, we had a chat with 𝗕𝗵𝘂𝗁𝗍 chairman on the issues of the business schools of India. Today morning, we had the Union Minister of State for HRD with us on the webinar, and we did discuss. And we are fortunate that right now, the global guru, Dr. Jagdish N sir, is there with us. And the 4 major areas which everybody was discussing, one was on admissions, that admissions, how we should go about it for this year in India. And then the people who are also discussing about red zone, orange zone, probably situations are a bit different, but challenging. But admissions, as you, I'm sure, would touch based on that many US Ivy Leagues, they have actually exempted GMAT for this year. And few of the even European business schools as well, including INSEAD, some of them, like in fact, LBS and Oxford have also deferred for the GMAT or GRE score. Likewise, there are some concerns with respect to parents to come to the campus because of typical current situation. At the same time, people are looking into criteria and timelines point of view. The micro area may not be of interest, but learnings from US currently, probably in your entire delivery, I'm sure you will touch based on that how probably Indian business school should learn that experience from US business school. That is one. Other area wherein we already requested for accreditation agencies and ASLE chairman, minister, that yes, can it be deferred for some time? Because it's right now the question of survival for the institution, barring few. And in this situation, by doing that, probably I'm sure the institutions will at least gear up for the online future point of view and with the proper engagement with the students. The teaching aspects which everybody is focusing on, in fact, probably Indian teachers are not so much used to online teaching. Yes, they need training. Now, in that aspect as well, probably your experiences in US business schools, wherever probably you wish to touch based on, any good practices which we can pick up and probably we can emulate at least to begin with, so that we won't lose out much time. And whichever probably practices which are well connected with the students from engagement point of view, because that engagement with the personal connect is very important for the teachers. Otherwise, in fact, our teachers will put up only the PowerPoint only on the online mode, which will not really serve purpose. And gradually people will really then get fed up, students. So how probably we can bring in that? And likewise, from digital backbone point of view, what are again maybe the best platform, best tools which is being used even in US, in maybe in your articulation somewhere, if you feel that yes, you can touch base on, or otherwise even in question answers also we can touch on. Now, the million-dollar question here is helping institutions to respond to this situation and how they can recover and how then probably they can reimagine the future. And in this aspect, even helping the teachers to develop the growth mindset. Where a lot of times teachers get subdued, they get suppressed. So how one can create a competitive organizations using individual capability as well as organizational capability as well. And in response to the context, I'm sure the Dave Ulrich just 2 days back was talking about the content is the king, but likewise, absolutely context is the kingdom. And that context, nobody else knows better than you, sir, because you always are connected with your Matrubhumi like this. Even though I know your Karma Bhumi, Matrubhumi, whatever, even Burma is there, India is there, US is there, you have a lot of Bhumis, but your love, affection, and your patriotism is very much kind of, close to India. So I'm sure you will unfold your wisdom. With this, I'm going to invite Padma Bhushan Dr. Jagdish N, sir. But before that, I know you don't need any introduction in India, but at the same time, I'll just quickly run through your profile for some of the youngsters who are there. Padma Bhushan, Dr. Jagdish N is Charles Kellstadt Professor of Marketing at Goethe Business School, Emory University, Atlanta, and has been conferred with Padma Bhushan, India's highest civilian award for NRI in literature and education. He is known nationally and internationally for his scholarly contributions in consumer behavior, relationship marketing, competitive strategy, and geopolitical analysis. He has 30 books and 300 articles to his credit. Professor Sheth has over 55 years of combined experience in teaching and research at various universities in the US. He's also founder and chairman of Academy of Indian Marketing, who are actually sponsors along with AIMS WeSchool together. Professor Sheth has been advisor and mentor to many CEOs of large corporations. He consistently figures in the list of Economic Times top 10 global thought leaders. Professor Sheth is also recipient of all 4 top awards given by the American Marketing Association. And Professor Sheth is also a philanthropist who has contributed large sums to academia through Sheth Foundation and also supports AMA Sheth Foundation Doctoral Consortium. And many of the Indian institutions are beneficial to this. But on the top of it, what I always love, cherish, admire is his humility. Humility par excellence, highest level of patriotism. And even his book, Accidental Scholar, is a guide not only to me, but to many academicians in the country. He says the accidental scholar, but I'm sure he believes in design thinking. So destiny was coined by that Almighty, and he was destined to be with us as a scholar. And at the same time, he's one of the major strengths. He plays multiple roles very, very with ease. And giving back to the society is his passion. Giving back to India, he's always done phenomenally well. And today, this moment as well, I'm sure he's giving back to all of us. And from here on, I'm sure a lot of us who are institutional heads, directors, deans, and even teachers, we will start transforming self and our organization and gradually for the society. With this, I invite Professor Jagdish N, sir, to address our gathering. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Uday. Thank you so much for inviting me. I want to thank 3 institutions, WeSchool as the main champion for this cause, AIMS as an organization, which is a wonderful organization. We need one, and 32 years of legacy and history is very good. And of course, Academy of Indian Marketing, and my colleague, Jan Shah, who is the executive director. So I thank you for inviting me. The timing is excellent to focus on the future of MBA with or without COVID-19. COVID-19 is going to accelerate the change, which I will talk about. But the MBA program, which is a great history, by the way, is now in a midlife crisis. Like any other organization, it has plateaued to a level where the future growth will not come doing the same way as we did before. The future growth will require change. And that's the whole point I'll talk about as to what we are doing in the US, what they are doing in the European setting, for example, and what are the lessons we can learn for the Indian context, which I'll focus in the second half, pretty much about the kinds of changes we expect in the future of the MBA program. So that's the background. Let's open the slide, please. Redesigning the MBA program for the future, which is the title of my presentation. So this is the title of my presentation. If you can make it bigger, that's great. Let's go to slide number 1. I will give first the good news. MBA is the most popular master's degree program in the US. 186,000 or more received the MBA degree in 2015-16, and this year's numbers tentatively are now 200,000 graduates. Out of a total of 785,000 for all master's degree programs in America. The next 2 master's degree programs were, at that time, in 2015 to 2016 data, education. Education is mandatory. If you want to be a school teacher, for example, you have to have a master's degree education nowadays, and in healthcare. Healthcare is still growing very well. Next slide, please. There were only, surprisingly, 51,000 master's degree graduates in engineering. This number is slightly deceptive because quite often master's is not the terminal degree in engineering. You do the master's degree and then quite a lot go into PhD. So there is a slight variation, but still the numbers are fascinating compared to the MBA, with less than 25% women graduates, which is where the key difference is. In the MBA program, at least in the US, it is becoming gender equal. We have as many women candidates in our classes as we have the men candidates. Unlike engineering, education is more women than men, for example. Healthcare, more men than women. It's very, very balanced degree, which has been surprising to all of us. MBA graduates command the highest salary of all fields, which has been the main attraction for people of different diverse backgrounds to come and study engineering, to study MBA. MBA was designed primarily for engineers. There was a major comment that engineers after graduation, World War II, post-war boom, there was a huge shortage, but when they came to work for the organization or a company, they had no knowledge about demand and supply, no knowledge about psychology and what motivations people, no knowledge about marketing, branding, etc. Which is why if you look at the core first year program of MBA, it is primarily giving you basic knowledge. In fact, it is so low that undergraduate programs are stronger than MBA programs in many countries in terms of the core concept. And then the second year, rather than specialize, we said here are electives you can select in the marketing area or in finance or in accounting. The same pattern is still there. When the IIMs were formed in India, that was the background. In India, of course, we have 3 terms in a year. Ours is a more semester. So we have more courses offered in India, a little more knowledge than America primarily. But that's the one thing we want to figure out. MBA is no longer only engineers. For example, in the first energy crisis of 74, 78, more and more people in liberal arts who are all brilliant students, rather than apply for GRE examination, began to apply for the MBA GMAT exams, primarily, coming to the business school because there were no jobs in their own disciplines. And then eventually in the 80s, private universities like Harvard, Yale, Wharton began to ask for more experienced students, which means you don't come straight from the undergraduate program, engineering, liberal arts, or wherever you are, but you actually have to, surprisingly, you have to have work experience, which changed the paradigm. And in the meanwhile, we designed the program's evening MBA for working professionals, executive MBA, as a way of extending the line so we have a larger enrollment. And it survived quite well from the viewpoint. But the point is that the experience was a very key change agent. which led to one more change, especially by 20 top private universities, which is a lead organization for us to monitor, is that all of them ended up not going for the corporations. It was designed that you do your IIT and IIM in India, for example, immediately join a corporation in some job, and then you rise through the ranks. No longer the case. 75% of our MBAs now only go into consulting services or investment banking. MBA was never designed for that. If I was designing an MBA today, where if my market is primarily consulting, for example, I would design it very differently. Because we don't teach anything about client relationship management. As a consultant, how do you manage client relationships? How do you organize teams? That's very different than the general MBA. So MBA was designed for the enterprises. Market is now very different. And this trend is going to continue even in India is our forecast, which I'll come in a moment. So this is a very important point to keep in mind, that the student population has changed over time, but the curriculum has remained basically the same. So let's take the next slide, please. Now the bad news, and which means that MBA has plateaued as a degree program. And for the second consecutive year in 2019, even the highest ranked business schools in the US are reporting significant declines in the MBA applications. And worse is yet to come. Forecast is that 2020, this year, next year will be even worse, despite the recession. The top 10 business schools combined saw a drop of about 3,400 MBA applicants, a fall of about 5.9%, which is interesting, a year earlier, compared to a year earlier. University of Michigan, a top among the top 10, Ross School of Business, experienced the worst decline among these top 10 only, 8.5%, followed by UC Berkeley, 7.5%, Wharton, 6.7%, Harvard, 4.5%, and Stanford, 4.6%. This is unheard of. Usually, in fact, you find they have an enrollment increase, the applications are increased, and therefore they're just like publishing in a top journal. More authors publish, the less the acceptance rate. So the best of the best are not necessarily coming into the MBA program. At the Fuqua School in Duke University, full-time MBA applications have already fallen by 14.5%, 14.6%. Yale's Management School, which is a top one also, 15.6%. And Dartmouth, Amos Tuck has dropped by 22.5%. So we think that MBA needs a restructuring. So let's go to the next slide, please. This is a very, very important quote by one dean. The MBA market is in dire straits now. Now, that's a very radical statement by the dean of a university or a business school to make it. The joke among deans is that flat is the new up. And that means if you can just have same enrollments as you have this year, you are a hero, which is a very, very unfortunate comment. Ainsley predicts that 10 to 20% of the top 100 MBA programs in US will likely lose in the next few years, which means they will drop out of the MBA programs. Many of the state universities with small MBA enrollments are already doing that. For example, University of Illinois made a great transition. They dropped full-time MBA program, all MBA programs for that matter, prepared themselves before dropping, going on Coursera platform, online MBA alone, and the numbers are dramatically good. For example, they have got 2,500 students already enrolled in the MBA program, and you don't have the cost. In the MBA program in the US, 1/3 cost is recruiting, 1/3 cost is placement, 1/3 cost, unfortunately, is maintaining them while they're on the campus. It's a very expensive way to manage and nurture the MBAs as compared to undergraduates, for example, or even a doctoral students for that matter. It's a very expensive program to run, and therefore you charge high fees, but it's coming to roost now. So I think University of Illinois offers their MBA, which has become a role model by ASCSB to tell other schools of business how to do it right. Surprisingly, they have prices only $20,000. That's very, very affordable compared to $100,000, which is the normal cost at top private universities. The deans joke about that all we need is a nice little recession. We are about the only people in the world who would like a recession. Isn't that interesting? It's a very small, very significant comment to pretty much mention that the status quo management will not survive, at least in the US setting, but we think it's a worldwide phenomenon. Next slide, please. So I have a whole research on why good companies fail. The same thing. This is why good business schools fail. And most of them, top ones, are failing. Good business schools fail when they are unwilling, partly because of whatever reason, or unable to adapt to the changing ecosystem. They are likely to fail. So for example, willingness to change comes from three things. The resistance to change comes from existing culture. The more you are wired very successfully the way you are, success breeds failure. In my book on self-destructive habits of good companies, one of the biggest problems I found among companies which are great, but they are dying now, was that they have a denial. They don't recognize the new reality, which is a key problem. Second area to bring about a change is a leadership change, for example. And the third one is that when you are really dying, you are going to think about any desperate measure. I want to do it. So survival is a key instinct to survive and bring willingness to change. On the other side is ability to change. And sometimes ability to change does not happen primarily because of the regulation of the industry. In our case, we are regulated by several regulatory bodies, plus the accreditation body, and they come as a bottleneck, surprisingly. So how do you reform regulation in the higher education or in the MBA program, which is very important? Processes is the second one. And to me, it's not as much culture as the processes that makes all the difference. And we hardware our process, the way we recruit, the way we interview, the way we have the exams, the way we manage. Look at the journey of a student, it's the same process pretty much. And once it is hardwired, it's very hard to change. And the last one is the infrastructure. We have a huge investment because most of the MBA programs in India are residential, which means the students have to stay on the campus. They are not commuter, as they call it. Ours is no residential requirement at all. So we have less of a problem. Infrastructure about the classroom teachings, for example, IT infrastructure, it's a very large commitment. And now you have to change, how do you reutilize it? How do you repurpose it? Becomes a very key problem area. So a business school that's resilient is both willing and able to change. A business school that is willing to change, but unable to change because of that processes, the regulation, etc. So you have the dean after dean come in. Our average length of a dean survival or a director survival is only 3.5 years. 5-year contracts, but after 3.5 years, they simply get, there's nothing I can do here. I'm sorry, I'm wasting my time. I go to some other institution. Very common, very large change to people. Administratively, it's a very tough job to manage as the director or the dean of a business school. Surprisingly, liberal arts is worse, obviously, but this is a reality. So let's go to the next slide, please. Changing external context, what is it? And as it was mentioned by the president of AIMS, digital revolution is really here. Whether we like it or not, we'll have to embrace it in a positive way. Second one is non-traditional competition. In fact, if you look at all the 7 points, I think on the next several pages, I have a little more elaboration on each one of them. So we can go to the next slide, please. So first one is the internet. Has made a dramatic change in anything that could be digitized. So publishing is the biggest lead, actually. Everything is online now, all the content. The libraries are basically online libraries. Today, a student does not go to the library comes to the laptop. Very fundamental shift for taking place. We also have a lot of remote learning. This is how we survived in the transition. In the middle of the semester, faculty were told no more physical classes. All students living in dormitories were asked to leave altogether, pretty much, and they left, surprisingly. They had to leave, that was mandatory. And we began to transition now to teach using Zoom and Canvas platforms as a combination. And it just worked pretty smoothly. There is a more and more acceptance of this. Used to be a looked down phenomenon when you did what is called a distance learning, we used to call it. Old distance learning used to be surprisingly correspondence schools, especially for people who were set abroad, like the diplomats, for example, or the military. That's how the distance learning came in. You send an exam. We changed to satellite way of learning, and eventually now we are doing everything on the internet parallel. So that was the next area. The last area is social media. Very big change. Can you expand the slide so I can see it better on my screen? Thank you so much. So next area is non-traditional competition. We were all laughing at MOOCs. There is no way MOOCs will do it. Open architecture. Coursera has been quite successful. So is edX, which is the MIT Harvard platform, and they've opened up the architecture now. Tremendous amount of inroads in liberal arts and social sciences compared to what we think in the business school. It is doing quite well in the engineering and the sciences themselves also. There's nothing unique about MBA to say this cannot be ported on a MOOC of some sort. An Illinois experiment, along with many others, 𝗬𝗎𝗄𝗃 Chapel Hill have clearly shown this is the way to go. So one second major competition is MS degree programs, because we refused to change from 2-year to 1-year MBA some time ago. So people began to say, I want more specialization. MS degree was always there in all business schools before. Surprisingly, MBA became popular. So MS degrees have come back. Hottest MS degree today is in data analytics. University of Texas, Austin started that, did very, very well. All major schools today offer that, and placement is very good, surprisingly, despite the recession, etc., because it's an area where there's a critical shortage of trained people. And I'll talk about the training, and I'll just give a preview. The training is no longer know why, which is what we do in MBA, but know how. So our MS in data analytics program, surprisingly, students have to learn coding. We have this caste system that coding is for high school educated people. Ours is brainy people. They don't need to do the mundane task, but we force on them coding, and that becomes very valuable. So it's basically how to is what we will be teaching more and more than why kind of a notion. So faculties are becoming competitors. Surprisingly, faculties are becoming more celebrity faculty. They really don't need the institution. And there are world-class faculty who are in demand anywhere they want to go as a contract worker, surprisingly, as opposed to tenure track. And we also have the rise of corporate universities now, more and more. Corporations are simply saying that MBA, by the way, is very much like what I call a yellow pages. It is not proprietary to anybody, please. Neither the accreditation body, nor the regulatory body, or any campus. It is like yellow pages, as I call it. I can use it anytime I want the word MBA, I can use it, surprisingly. And in a corporation, we are designing programs unique so that I can hire faculty from different campuses and give them an MBA degree by the corporation, which may be as valuable. You think this is a radical idea? Rand Corporation has done that for 35, 40 years. Their degree, a PhD, is more valuable or as good as Princeton degree in policy, for example. So corporations are becoming more and more competitors in the process, which is our bread and butter business, because they are the recruiters who come to the campus, but they're saying your MBA is just no longer the kind of MBA that we need for the future. We need to customize ourselves. We have a lot of global choices now. America is not the only place to come. Europe is offering excellent choices now, as good as any place. Asia is offering Hong Kong, Singapore, and some other parts of Asia. And we do have the globalization of enterprises. We say there's a large global enterprise. I don't want everybody to come from America only to run the organization worldwide. I want local people trained locally. So you have seen the success of INSEAD, which I watched from the day it was formed, very successful. They've got now a campus in Singapore, for example, very successful. SP Jain, going into the international side, basically says that I want local people to be trained for a large enterprise so they can start their career not from one country, but multiple countries. Next slide, please. Career-oriented market demand. More and more people want immediate job opportunity. And as I said, the corporations are finding our MBA prices are too high. Consultancy, an MBA student is a revenue generator. In a corporation, as a manager, he or she is a cost center. Clear difference. If you're a revenue generator, I can pay you more, like I pay more for the salespeople for that matter, which is a key difference. And as we have got more wages high by the consulting opportunities, corporations are simply saying you have outpriced it. I can get a bright undergraduate business major who has more depth of knowledge than you have, and I can train and give my internal MBA much better, much smarter than I can hire you. Very important. And of course, once you have an MBA with work experience, your expectations are not to start at the bottom, but start at a middle manager level, which again, there is not enough room for everybody. So there are all kinds of issues. Vocational technical education in management is absolutely necessary. We are the only discipline that behaves more like a social science as a professional degree. We should be more like medical degree, more like engineering. You never have a medical degree without touching the patient, cutting the cadaver, for example, cutting the frog, whatever it is. You never are in the engineering without building something physically. I think we are a lot more clinical than we have recognized, unlike the social sciences. Second area, fifth area is of course affordability and accessibility. The average cost of an MBA degree in the US is $100,000. Student loans are in big jeopardy, $1.5 trillion. Governments have given loans to students in America and they can't pay anymore. It is one of the biggest debts on the family I've ever seen, more than the credit card debt, surprisingly, which we borrow quite a lot on credit. And it's coming to haunt us now pretty much. Location and time centric, most of our teaching MBA is a brick and mortar, just like brick and mortar retailing. We are going to change and transform. That may not be the future. Next page, please. And I'll quickly summarize because of the time. Geopolitical uncertainty. This is a massive problem because foreign students don't know. And we depend in the US for about 15–20% are all foreign students. Foreign students are not coming because we are not allowing them, or once they come, they don't know whether they can get out with the COVID-19 phenomenon. So given all this stuff, we have a huge problem about foreign students. So rising China and America tensions, which is a new Cold War that I expect happening pretty much. European economy is stagnant, et cetera, and you have a Brexit phenomenon. So this geopolitical uncertainty will continue. Changing employment opportunities. This is another area. Consulting services is still dominating and will continue because more and more consultancy jobs will come in a crisis like the COVID crisis. Investment banking will continue because I've already forecasted in other sessions that will be massive mergers and acquisitions for which you need the investment bankers to do all the work, making sure due diligence is done. It's appropriate for the for the stock market, etc. And more hiring will come from technology enterprises. Technology enterprises will definitely hire more MBAs, except once we revise the curriculum. So let's go to the next chart, please. This is where the leadership aspect comes. I'll summarize very quickly. Yeah, the current leadership is happy with what they do. If you continue status quo, do not recognize the new realities, you go downward. That leads to crisis management as we are going through right now. So you might have a crisis management looking from inside out. What can I do? How can I fix? How do I cost cutting? Whatever is possible, as corporations are doing. And crisis management is typically cost cutting, consolidating multiple campuses. Same professor teaches online into several campuses now, or exit the business, typically. And many business schools will exit at this time if they're solely business schools. Or if it's a business school in a university, they might say, this is not sustainable. We may as well invest in some other discipline than the business discipline. And you have otherwise the adaptive mindset, which is thinking outside in. It always says that in a kind of a crisis, there is an opportunity. If you are willing to change, motivate the people, has a growth orientation and repositioning the institution altogether. But as you do outside in leadership, 4 or 5 things come into play. Your culture, how do you change your culture? Because faculty, staff, they're all used to doing the way they do, they're quite happy. processes, which is the second thing which I talked about earlier. Systems, structure, which is the organizational way we design who manages what, and ultimately the policy. These are the ones that the challenge of a leader is, how do you re-change or transform an organization in those 5 dimensions for the future? So let's go to the next chart, please. So next chart is before that one, there is a whole couple of charts about the shopping mall. Can you back up, please? Yeah, there should be page number 13. Is there a page 13 there? Okay, that's fine. If you don't have it, there are 2 pages missing, obviously, in the presentation that I had sent. Basically, it says that ultimately, MBA institutions, management institutions, if they are not a part of the university, will have 2 extreme reactions. You will have, on the one hand, more like a shopping center, an anchor department store, full-line generalist. At the university, MBA program, management school, undergraduate, etc., they offer everything. Working people, non-working people, full-time, 1 year, whatever it is. It's a complete one-stop shop. Or you will get specialists who say, I specialize. The more you are specialized, the more smaller you will be, but very specialized in commanding higher price. And on the other side, the more you are volume scale driven. It's an old theory I have called the rule of 3, where some companies survive at the scale driven. This is the chart, yes. And then the rest of them don't. So next chart, please. And therefore, I see clearly 2 worlds of master's programs all over the world. Those who specialized, very niche, either for a given company, even for that matter, there's a huge market, why not? And England leads the way more than America in those kinds of specialized programs. And they have a differential advantage. They have a customized curriculum for the industry, for the corporation, etc. And on the other side, you have the scale advantage. Worst place is in the middle someplace. You are neither having a differential advantage nor a scale advantage. Let me give you a couple of Indian examples. XLRI did very, very well even today because they said we will focus on HR. All the HR heads of corporations usually have an XLRI. MICA has done quite well so far by focusing on advertising and communication. They may not rank among the top in the general field, but they definitely rank #1. Look at those 2 options. There are more opportunities like that to be niche players, specializing by discipline. Like, I'm just a finance school. Rochester did that. Simon School, many years ago, I remember, totally changed to say, everything we teach would be finance oriented. So one will have to come to all those differences. So let me go to the next chart, please. No, please, there's a whole change. Go back. Yeah, this is the one. No. I'm so sorry. We had reversed this thing. So after this, yes.
No, after this.
Yes, this is the one.
This one.
Yeah. So here we have specialized MBA programs, very important, either by discipline. You give the title MBA, 1 year, first year program is compressed to 1 semester, in your case, 1 term even. Who said you have to teach a full-blown microeconomics and macroeconomics? That's not necessary. Today, I just need the vocabulary. Our first year MBA curriculum is nothing but teaching ABC, the language of that particular discipline. That's all it is. We have blown into 1 full year, 12 courses or 15 in India. For us would be 8 courses. You don't need all that. In 1 year MBA programs, everybody has done that. First semester is just general education about management. And the next 2 semesters, you are primarily going into specialization. So that's very key. And you can specialize by demand and industry, for example. Second one has to do with expand 1 year MBA program, which has been very successful for us. 1 year MBA program has been quite successful. Northwestern has a large program. We have a good program. Our size is small, but 1 year is becoming more and more the norm because students don't have the time, work experience. When you are coming back, you don't have savings that you have, borrowing money, etc. You're not a fresh graduate. Parents are not going to fund you anymore. And therefore, people say, how can I do it faster? because I would like to have a career right afterwards. It's just an MBA is a stepping stone in their mind. And ISB has done a great job in India in terms of the enrollments and keeping the GMAT score very high. Next one is the BBA, MBA, 5-year experiential learning. If I would have a new MBA, I would start with BBA first. Over 5 years, I can give internships, very experiential. So I come out as a BBA, MBA, 2 degrees in 5 years with much more employability, lot more depth of knowledge that you cannot do in 1 year or 2-year MBAs by and large. Online MBA, as we already talked about, is the future, whether we like it or not. It's not the only program, but it will have a higher share, just as we underestimated Amazon at changing the retailing. Just we underestimated the success of Flipkart. It is going to happen in education. Only reason you will be slowing down will be because the management, the regulation doesn't allow you, that's it. But in that case, you are caught in the middle. Financially, you can't survive. You have to offer online MBA as an alternative to regular MBA, both of them, or just one of them, as Illinois has made a tough decision. Expand the market to non-businesses. This is my favorite. There are a huge set of markets. There's a whole military market, I know. There's a diplomatic market. And in diplomacy now, very clearly, all ambassadors have to be brand ambassadors. They have to know the trade and investment things, not just Cold War mentality and Cold War issues, conflict resolution. So that's a big market we see happening over there. There is also a reverse innovation. I find very fascinating, not a reverse innovation from emerging economies to advanced, which is there, but this reverse innovation says that certificate programs, non-degree, we have more flexibility. We have done all kinds of interesting things. Can we bring that knowledge from a diploma or a certificate into the MBA program? In fact, you see many of the institutions are offering online 7-month, 6-month entrepreneurship successful programs, online in this case, but we don't have to have an online. We have more flexibility in the way we exam the students, etc. So I think that's important. And the next one is obviously faculty, abroad immersion. I feel one of the biggest things in globalization is not our students studying abroad, but our faculty needs to be immersed abroad. In the US, we know our faculty is so America-centric. All the cases we teach is America. So we actually encourage our faculty, actually create a organized approach to go out 2 weeks, 3 weeks in China, go out 2-3 weeks in India, go out 2-3 weeks in Brazil or Latin America, and understand how they are doing it, what is their context. When they come back, they will change totally. And the last one, and a very important one, is that's what I'm working on, revise the core first-year MBA curriculum altogether. I would rather teach more something that has to do with digital technology, ABC of digital technology. I would teach coding mandatorily. There's no way out, just as we teach calculus or quantitative methods, just as we teach behavioral sciences. So I've listed 4 courses, which everybody's very interested. How do you organize and phase out additional courses or make them more compressed? So let me conclude and pick up questions and answers. Let's go to the next slide, please. MBA degree is the most popular master's degree so far. It is also more popular across the globe. There are, however, contextual changes such as we talked about, digital revolution, global choices, non-traditional competition, which is I would watch non-traditional competition, and demand for skill-based graduates that will impact the future of the MBA program. Let me tell you, non-traditional competition in Indian context, I actually include the private universities allowed by each state. Keep that in the back of your mind, as opposed to the traditional IIM structure and the traditional universities that have become business schools or starting a business school. Third leg is very important because there you have more flexibility than any other place to start whatever you would like to do, as opposed to being regulated by 2 regulatory bodies. All might matters is accreditation. Last page. There are some very good experiments going on. Everybody's struggling with this area. The adaptive mindset is critical, as I mentioned, to revitalizing and repositioning the MBA program. And here are sort of 8 recommendations that I already talked about pretty much. And out of this one, I would definitely go for online MBA as fast as you can. In the traditional MBA, we think the reverse. Something I have already learned, and I find it fascinating, anything we give up as a daily necessity, as a routine, and is substituted by something else, it always comes back as a hobby. Hunting, fishing, gardening, baking breads, food, cooking. Same thing, our core is brick and mortar, supplemented by online curriculum, online videos, etc. It will flip around. Core will be more video or online, and occasionally you come to the campus. And that is an enormous implication in the Indian context because we have a massive investment in residential programs where people have to live there, which is not the case in America at least, or maybe in Europe. So I stop here. I'm sorry it took a little longer time. Thank you very much.
Sir, thank you very much. Can you hear me, Dr. Sheth?
I can hear you.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. The few questions are there before me, and then afterwards, I'm going to request Anil to take it over. The first one is, when we are going digital, what should be the learning effectiveness matrix?
The learning effective matrix would be additional, in addition to the traditional ones. One of the things you have to do is, it is much more skill-based. The best online programs are skill-based. Where we thought hands-on thing, you have to experience it. Actually, online, they're doing very well. If you take YouTube courses on anything, how do I fix my washer, for example? The testing has to be different. Our testing is on cognitive matters. As I mentioned, know why, not know how. Once in a while, we give a case or a problem solving, which is also theoretical in many ways. So our testing online program has to be something that is a real world problem. There's some real world thing that do it online. So our matrix has to change significantly compared to what we do. There is also a very big reaction. Who said that we should give letter grades? A, B, C, D, or numerical grades, 1 to 10, as IIMs used to do at one time. Why not just give pass, fail, satisfactory, unsatisfactory? In fact, give a choice to the student. Who said that a grade point average matters so much in employment? Does not matter anymore. It's interesting. It's an old system that was designed long way back before business schools were created even. So letter grade can be replaced by satisfactory, unsatisfactory, as we did. And we had a lot of resistance by the faculty, obviously, because they don't know how to do that. So we left it up to the student to decide whether he or she would like to have a satisfactory, unsatisfactory. And we had some cutoff point before which it becomes satisfactory, unsatisfactory. So that changes quite a lot. In the real, in the online world, there has to be something else which is tested, which says, were you able to work virtually with teams? And if you go to engineering side, engineers do work like that all over the world. They design a new thing all over the world. If they are able to do online, they should be able to do something similar in a teamwork, a project of some sort. And those are the things that I can think right now.
That's right. Thank you. Very interesting. How can digitization create a real-time integration with industry in classroom teaching?
Yeah, very important and very easy. I saw when I was at USC, again, engineering led the way. Healthcare may led the way, for not us, we are laggards actually. They were offering a Master in Science program, MS in Engineering at USC, which is a top engineering school also, through microwave, short distance microwave. Same classes were taken by engineers at all of the aerospace companies, Lockheed, Boeing, Northrop Grumman, for example. They had their classrooms set there also, and the managers will take time out just to come because the cost of coming to the campus is so high for working professionals in a large city. So they basically had they had the same examinations. You did not have to come physically to the class. It's a live program that you offer. And to me, microwave technology, was very important in that area. Today we have the satellites, it went to satellites, and today we have the internet. So it's very possible to do.
Okay, thank you. How do we replace technology with face-to-face teaching and thereby revisiting curriculum and pedagogy?
Yeah, I think main thing would be curriculum has to be revisited clearly, because syllabus, the way you design, is organized as if you'll be in together. At the undergraduate level, I know, usually in large state universities, you might have 2,000 students taking an introduction to marketing class. So they have large auditoriums, several sections you do, right? That is not as conducive in the online programs. How do you do it differently, surprisingly, So very large classes will go through more changes, because in the large massive class, the professor just gives a lecture. And then it's broken into workshops or lab, we call it laboratory as in engineering. So each assistant will manage 30 students at a time, give them the specific problems based on that lecture, etc. Very common. That's the approach for the large undergraduate programs. MBA programs at Harvard would be 900 students easily every year. Columbia had 1,200 students annually. So at there you can manage something differently. So to me, that's the kind of an adaptation you will have to make.
Okay. The next question is on capacity building, which is very important. Which competencies should faculty build in this digital era from the capacity building point of view?
I think we all have to be equally comfortable teaching in a brick and mortar environment and teaching on an online environment. One of the quickest things faculty can do, and I'll tell you why, is to really videotape your lectures. Don't give lectures in the class, at least at the MBA level. Videotaping puts a discipline on you. As a faculty, we are not disciplined. We wing our way in the classroom. We latch onto a story that we like, and we say the story will be liked by everybody. There's a message. There's a lot of inefficiency of teaching in classroom. There's a lot of fluff. And you take the fluff out, because when you want to have a 40-minute lecture, it's not easy to do it. You don't have to read the teleprompter even. I mean, you can do it talking so that you have a natural conversational language, but it is a hard work. And that's very important. Faculty will have to learn how to deliver solid content. Faculty will have to learn online. You can't rely on the textbook. Textbooks will be themselves becoming smaller and smaller. They become encyclopedias. They're not even textbooks. And so newer text will be all video chapters. Publishing industry is going for more and more video chapters. And they basically say, all right, have chapter number 1 on this topic or that topic, whatever it is. So you have to deal with the world of video first, print second.
True.
I mean, I can go on and on. There are so many possibilities.
Okay. I'm going to request Anil now to take it forward, but I'm sure do keep track of the time from the sir's point of view. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you, Dr. Seth. Sorry for the small glitch in the PPT. We didn't realize this. I'm so sorry. Coming from your PPT and your presentation, you mentioned that there's a decline in MBA demand in US, and some questions regarding, is MBA losing its relevance? And passing one more question added to that is, do you see any gain for Indian B schools on account of declining admissions abroad?
Yes, there are 2-3 possibilities. The first one is MBA still will be more appropriate and valuable in India for one reason. More and more multinationals, especially in services, professional services, like consulting, accounting, legal, etc., will be hiring people from India in India. India, in Make in India strategy, actually was designed for manufacturing, but India is becoming the largest hub for professional services. We have more talent than anybody else. As I've said before, if you want to find gold, where do you go? Where the gold mine is. And given all the immigration issues worldwide, not just in America, having a student come here, study in America, and then employed by Microsoft or whatever, Intel or whatever those guys are, is the reverse now. Which means those enterprises have to come to India, which means there's a demand in India by the technology industries as one key area. And also many of the packaged goods industries where we dominate quite a lot in terms of placement will also change. Same thing will happen with the investment banking. So we think that in India, there'll be a shift of MBA from advanced countries to emerging markets. In order to make the shift, it's very important that you meet accreditation standards, not regulatory standards. We are driven by regulatory standards in India because that's historical. I think if we have to go in addition to that, accreditation standards, such as the ASCSB International, for example, because those standards will push our curriculum and everything to a global level. It doesn't mean we don't localize, but the kinds of things we teach has to go to our beyond just something in a textbook to more and more something that's a new knowledge you are creating yourself, a research-based kind of a stuff. So that's clearly one factor why the MBA will continue. Second factor is very different. In India, for marriage purposes, degrees are very valuable. Okay. to marry the right person, an MBA has a value. It's like a dowry equivalent, but this is a men dowry, not just women dowry. Okay. So the MBA program will be still valuable. The third, so my recommendation is very simple. Even here, offer the MBA title, but change the curriculum to more specialization. So I have an MBA, which offers you basics of MBA in 1 term out of 6 terms. The rest is all about, let's say, specialization in retailing. Retailing is a massive industry. It needs professionalism. Any industry that is highly unorganized and is about to transform, becoming organized by technology, by scale, whatever it is, it needs a professional people to run it. Like the CPG industry or FMCG 100 years ago, it's the same phenomenon. So we need, therefore, identify industries such as, for example, tourism. I'm very fond of promoting India tourism. It is surprisingly very large. In 2019, 1.3 billion people travel as tourists in India. And I'm saying numbers don't like, right? They're not right. Foreigners are only 15 million. The rest were all Indians traveling in India for puja, festivals, big events, etc. There's a huge domestic, it's all unorganized. Has no certification of any kind, not just MBA, I'm talking about certification of any kind. And I've strongly recommended to the government that each aspect of the tourism industry which touches the tourist has to have a certification. So if you do safari in Africa, they have a certified guide, not somebody who is local who has trained himself. How do you organize a certified, which requires higher education, vocational, professional, and of course the management side comes for us as a part of the total thing. So that's huge, huge opportunities. So I would keep the MBA name and hopefully the regulators will allow you to do that thing. And ASCSB will allow, definitely, it looks like, so long as you meet the quality standard pretty much, So that's what I would recommend.
Thank you, Dr. Seth. Thank you, Padma Bhushan Dr. Jagdish Seth, for your valuable insights in today's webinar organized by AIMS, WeSchool, and AIM. Your talk has brought in a lot of clarity, and we all feel very confident and inspired. You are, in fact, a role model to many in management fraternity, and look forward to your continuous guidance as well. My special thanks to President AIMS, Dr. Sujata Mangraj, for your presidential address, and to Dr. Uday Salunkhe, Group Director, Welingkar Group of Institutions, for moderating today's webinar. AIMS has pioneered and conducted 15 webinars so far, and today's the 16th webinar with Padma Bhushan Dr. Jagdish Seth. He is topping on the cake for AIMS community. As the AIMS institution leaders begun their journey in the new normal, Dr. Seth's deeper insights come handy to all of us. You spoke about expand a one-year MBA, online MBA in particular. You also talked about the revision in the core, faculty abroad immersion. I think these are a few things which we need to relook and look at the new normal for all of us. Sir, we look forward for your continuous guidance and inspiration in these COVID times. And I thank AIMS office at Hyderabad, Pune for putting together the webinar along with WeSchool team. Thank you, my friend, Chartered Accountant Jayant Shah, Executive Director of Academy of Indian Marketing, for all your support for today's webinar. And of course, all the participants for overwhelming response and questions. In fact, there are so many questions that because of time, I thought I will restrict to one or two. Of course, Dr. Uday had elaborately got to many other questions. Thank you, Padma Bhushan Dr. Jagdish Seth. Sorry for that line on the PPT and a glitch in PPT. Extremely sorry for that. But however, thank you very much for your deeper insights and being a mentor to all of us. Thank you and namaste, sir.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you,
Namaste.
sir.
Good night.
Namaste. Namaste.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.
Good day, sir.
Bye.
I would request participants to do the poll before you leave. Thank you.
Yes, Jayant.